The year is 2029. The setting is a conference room. Polished mahogany table, water glasses sweating onto coasters. The air is thick with the hum of a projector. On the screen, a single line item from a deposition. Exhibit 4B. Frank Miller leans forward. He's 67 years old now. The company's best regional service manager for 2 decades. Retired 3 years. They brought him back for this. For his memory. For his certainty. He squints at the screen. The lawyer, a young man with an eager face, reads the line aloud. Work Order 77B-91. Date, October 4th, 2017. Customer, Sarah Connolly. Vehicle, 2016 Model 9R Series Tractor. Issue, SCR Fault Code SPN 3364FMI2. Frank remembers the tractor. He remembers the name. He does not remember the code. The lawyer continues. Quoted repair. Replace after-treatment control module and DEF header assembly. Estimated cost, $7,482.56. Frank nods. It sounds right. That was the protocol.
That was the book. You replace the whole system. You don't take chances. You don't leave a customer stranded during harvest. He starts to speak, to explain the logic, to explain the corporate policy designed for safety, for reliability. Then the lawyer clicks to the next slide. Exhibit 4C. A single photograph. A small black plastic sensor, no bigger than a thumb. It sits on a piece of cardboard. Next to it, a handwritten note. The lawyer reads again. Actual repair. Replace DEF tank level sensor. Part cost, $14.99. Source, eBay. Time to install, 25 minutes. Frank Miller stops. He does not speak. He looks at the number on the first slide. $7,482.56. He looks at the number on the second. $14.99. The room is silent. The hum of the projector seems louder now. A deep, vibrating thrum. Frank feels something he can't quite name. It's not embarrassment. It's not anger. It's the cold, clean shock of a story he thought he knew. A story he thought he was the hero of. Suddenly having a different ending. An ending he wasn't even in. Because Frank Miller was a good man. He was the man who told Sarah Connolly it couldn't be fixed that way. He was the man who told her, with kindness and real concern in his voice, that this was just too much for her, that she was in over her head, that he was only trying to protect her. And that is the gap. The gap between who they told her she'd be and who she became. The gap between $14.99 and $7,000. That gap is where this story lives. This channel tells the stories of people who were told no. The ones who were underestimated. The ones who found a way when the world only showed them a wall. If you believe those stories need to be told, subscribe. Because what happened after that October day, it changed more than just one farm. It started a quiet revolution. Let's go back. Back to before the tractor. Before the code. Before the bill. Back to the man who taught her everything. Her father, Tom Connolly. Tom was a man made of soil and sunlight. He believed in 3 things: the grace of God, the strength of his family, and the fundamental honesty of the dirt. He farmed 160 acres in the valley, corn and soybeans, the same land his father farmed and his father before him. The Connolly farm wasn't big, it wasn't famous, but it was theirs, every inch paid for, no debt, no banknotes. Tom's hands were maps of his life, calloused and cracked, stained with grease and earth. He could fix anything. A broken weld on a planter, a '78 Ford pickup that refused to start, a child's broken heart. He believed in repair. He believed nothing was ever truly broken, just waiting for the right pair of hands. Sarah grew up in his shadow, not in the house with her mother, but in the barn with her father. She learned the smell of diesel and welding fumes. She learned the heft of a wrench. She learned the language of machines, the specific whine of a bearing about to fail, the healthy chatter of a diesel engine at full throat. Her brother Ben was the same. 2 years older, he had the gift too, the gift of diagnosis, of seeing the broken part inside the whole. While other kids played video games, they rebuilt a carburetor on the kitchen table. While other kids went to the mall, they tore down the engine on a John Deere 4020, just to see how it worked. The farm was a classroom. The tools were the textbooks, and their father was the professor. He had one rule. You don't buy new if you can fix old. You don't pay a man for a job you can do yourself. Self-sufficiency was his religion. It was the only true freedom. Then, in 2015, something changed. Tom turned 60. His shoulders started to ache. His hands, once so steady, began to tremble. The old 4020, reliable for 40 years, felt bigger, more stubborn. The levers were heavier. The clutch was a constant grinding fight. A new kind of tractor started appearing on the farms around them. Big, green, air-conditioned cabs, GPS steering, computers that did half the work. Tom scoffed at them. Too complicated, he'd say. Too much to go wrong. You can't fix a computer with a wrench. But Sarah saw the way he looked at them, the longing in his eyes after a long day, the weariness he tried to hide. So for his 61st birthday, she and Ben did something. They pooled their savings. They went to the dealer. They put a down payment on a new machine, a 2016 Model 9R. It was a monster, a technological marvel. It cost more than their house was worth. It was the first time a Connolly had ever signed a loan paper for a piece of equipment. Tom argued. He protested. "This isn't us," he said. "This isn't how we do things." But when he climbed into the cab and the air conditioning washed over him, and he turned the key and the engine came to life with a quiet whoosh, not a roar, when he put it in gear with the touch of a button. He didn't say another word. He farmed that whole season with a smile on his face. He said it was like a vacation. He had more energy. He spent more time with his grandkids. He looked 10 years younger. It was the best year of their lives. It was also the last. He passed away that winter, a heart attack in his sleep. Peaceful, the doctor said. He left behind a grieving family, 160 acres of black dirt, and a brand new tractor with 2 years left on the note. He left it all to Sarah, not Ben. Ben had his own garage in town. He had his own life. But Sarah was the farmer. His will was simple. It just said, "For Sarah, the dirt is enough. The dirt is enough." Spring came. The grief was a fog that wouldn't lift, but the ground was thawing. The work had to be done. Sarah climbed into the cab of the big green tractor. It felt empty. The seat her father had occupied felt vast. She turned the key. The dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. And then a single, piercing beep. A message on the screen. Exhaust system fault. Engine power reduced. Service immediately. She tried to put it in gear. Nothing. The tractor would start, but it would not move faster than a crawl. Limp mode. A digital prison. She turned it off and on again. The message was still there. She checked the manual, a book as thick as a Bible. It told her nothing, just a single unhelpful line. If fault persists, contact your dealer. So she called. She knew the service manager, Frank Miller. Frank had sold them the tractor. He'd come to her father's funeral.
A good man, a pillar of the community. He coached Little League. He was on the church board. Frank was a man you could trust. He listened patiently on the phone. His voice was warm, concerned. "Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry to hear that. Right before planting, too. That's just terrible luck. Don't you worry. We'll take care of it. I'll send a truck." 2 hours later, a flatbed arrived. The big green tractor was loaded up. It looked defeated, humiliated. Sarah stood in the driveway and watched it go. A piece of her father, a piece of her future, disappearing down the road. She felt a knot of dread in her stomach. The next day, Frank called. His voice was different, more serious, sober. "Sarah," he said, "I've got the report from my tech. It's not great news." He explained the problem, the Selective Catalytic Reduction System, the SCR, the computer that cleaned the exhaust. It had thrown a code, a serious one, SPN 3364FMI2. The words meant nothing to her, just a string of numbers and letters. "So what's the fix, Frank? A new sensor? A loose wire?" There was a pause on the line. A long, heavy pause. "Well, Sarah, that's the thing. With these new systems, it's not that simple. The whole module is a sealed unit. The sensor in the DEF tank is part of the header assembly. We can't just replace one part. We have to replace the whole thing. For safety. For emissions compliance. It's the only way the company allows us to do the repair." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "The whole thing? What does that mean, Frank? What's the cost?" Another pause. He was bracing her. She could feel it. He was a kind man, delivering a hard truth. He genuinely felt bad. That was the worst part. "Sarah, the parts alone are almost $6,000. With labor and the software reflash, you're looking at close to $7,500. $7,500. The words hung in the air, an impossible number. It was more than she made from the entire farm the year before. The loan payment was already a struggle. This was a death blow. I don't have that, Frank. I can't. Is there any other way? Anything at all?" And this is where the kindness became a weapon. This is where the concern became a cage. Frank's voice softened. It was full of pity, full of a gentle paternal certainty. "Listen to me, Sarah. I knew your dad a long time. He was a good man, a hard worker. But this new equipment, it's a different world. It's not like the old days. You can't just fix it with a wrench and some grit." He sighed, a deep, weary sigh. The sigh of a man who had seen this before. Maybe this is a sign. This farm, it's a lot for anyone, especially for... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. Especially for a young woman. Alone. Maybe it's time to think about your options. There are developers sniffing around the valley. They're paying top dollar. You could be set for life. No more worrying about fault codes and repair bills. I'm just saying, I'm not going to be the man who takes your last dollar for a tractor repair. I want you to think about it. I'm trying to help you, Sarah. I'm trying to protect you." The line went quiet. He was waiting for her to agree, to cry, to admit he was right. She felt a rage build in her chest, a cold, clean fury. It wasn't at his price. It was at his pity. He wasn't a villain. He was worse. He was a good man who had already decided who she was. He had already written her ending. Sarah took a breath. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. "Send the tractor back, Frank." "What?" "Sarah, it won't run." "I know. Send it back anyway." She hung up the phone. She did not slam it down. She placed it gently in its cradle, the quietest declaration of war. The tractor came back on the flatbed that afternoon. The driver unloaded it at the end of the lane. He looked apologetic. He wouldn't make eye contact. There it sat, a $300,000 lawn ornament, a monument to her failure. The planting window was closing. Every day she waited, her yield potential dropped. The neighbors were already in the fields. Their tractors were moving. Theirs were working. She could feel their eyes on her. She could hear the whispers at the co-op. Tom's girl. In over her head. Just like Frank said. That night, her brother Ben came over. He brought a case of beer and a grim look. He'd heard the news. Word travels fast in a small town. He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't say anything about the loan. He just sat with her at the kitchen table. The same table where they'd rebuilt carburetors. She told him the story. The code. The phone call with Frank. The $7,500 quote. The part that made Ben's jaw tighten was Frank's advice, his suggestion to sell, his paternal protection. Ben stood up. He walked to the window and looked out at the dark shape of the tractor. He took a long drink of beer. "He's wrong," he said. "About what?" "About all of it. About you. About the tractor." He turned around. His eyes had a fire she hadn't seen in years, the fire of a puzzle he needed to solve. "This isn't about the farm anymore, is it?" She shook her head. "No." He nodded. "Good. Let's go to work." For the next 3 days, the barn was their command center. Ben was the general. Sarah was his lieutenant. The internet was their weapon. Ben didn't know tractors. He knew cars. But he knew logic. And he knew corporate greed when he saw it. He said, "They lock you out of the software. They build a fortress of patents and proprietary tools. But somebody, somewhere, always finds a way in. Somebody always leaves a key under the mat." So they searched. They dug through obscure farming forums in Australia. They watched pixelated YouTube videos from mechanics in Brazil. They read technical papers from Germany. They learned a new language. D, E, F, S, C, R, D, P, F, E, C, U, C, A, N, bus. A language designed to confuse, to intimidate, to make you pick up the phone and call the dealer. They found pages and pages of complaints, farmers all over the world, trapped by the same codes, held hostage by the same policies. They were not alone. And in that community of frustration, they found whispers of a solution. The code was SPN 3364 FMI2, an illogical data reading from the DEF tank quality sensor. The company's solution was to replace everything, the whole system. But one user, a farmer in Saskatchewan with the username Gopher Grease, had a different theory. He wrote, "The quality sensor is fine. It's the level sensor that fails. It's a cheap float switch, but when it fails, it sends a garbage signal to the ECU, which trips the quality code. The ECU thinks the DEF is bad, but it's just getting bad information." It was a theory, a crazy theory, one that went against the billion-dollar company's official diagnosis. But it made sense. It was elegant. It was the kind of problem their father would have solved. Find the simplest point of failure. Ben found the part number for the DEF header assembly. A diagram exploded into 100 tiny pieces. And there it was, at the bottom of the tank. A small, insignificant-looking sensor. Part number 8426A, the float level sensor. The dealer wouldn't sell it to them. It only came as part of the full $7,000 assembly, of course. But the part number was the key. Ben typed it into eBay. And there it was. A seller in China. Brand new, in a plastic bag. $14.99. With free shipping. It felt too good to be true. It felt like a miracle. They ordered it. The shipping estimate was 2 weeks.
2 weeks they didn't have. Ben kept digging. He found a schematic of the sensor's wiring. It was a simple 3-wire switch, positive, negative, signal. He looked at Sarah, a glint in his eye. "We don't need the part," he said. "We just need to tell the computer the part is there, and that it's working." The next hour was a masterclass in ingenuity. Ben found an old resistor in a coffee can full of junk, a 2.2 kilo-ohm resistor. He cut the sensor wire. He stripped it back. He soldered the resistor across 2 of the pins. He wrapped it all in electrical tape. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked. "I'm telling the computer a story," he said. "I'm telling it the DEF tank is full, and the quality is perfect, and everything is fine." It was a lie. A 20-cent lie told to a $50,000 computer. He lowered the jerry-rigged sensor back into the tank. He tightened the bolts. He wiped his hands on a rag. "Okay," he said. "Try it now." Sarah walked to the tractor. Her heart was pounding. This was it, the moment of truth. She climbed into the cab. The seat still felt too big. She took a deep breath. She turned the key. The dashboard lit up. The same lights, the same chimes. She waited for the beep, the fatal message. But it didn't come. The screen was clear. No faults, no warnings. Her hand trembled as she reached for the gear shift. She pushed the button for forward. She braced for the lurch, for the failure. The tractor moved. It rolled forward smoothly, effortlessly. She pushed the throttle. The engine responded, the quiet roar of power, unleashed. She drove it out of the barn, into the moonlight. She looked back at the barn door. Ben was standing there, silhouetted. He raised his beer in a silent toast. Sarah didn't cheer.
She didn't cry. She just drove. She put the planter in the ground that night, and she didn't stop until the entire 160 acres were sown. The quietest victory, the loneliest fight. Have you ever been told you couldn't do something? Not by an enemy, but by a friend. By someone who thought they were protecting you. Someone who had already decided the limits of your world. What did that feel like? Tell us in the comments. Because proving them wrong is a victory. But what Sarah did next, that was different. That was a legacy. Word got out. Of course it did. You can't hide a miracle in a town that small. One day, the big green tractor was a dead hulk at the end of a lane. The next, it was running 24/7 in the field. People talked. At the diner, at the seed dealer, at church. The community split into 2 camps. The first camp was the doubters, the conventional wisdom crowd, led by men like Dale Swanson, who farmed the section next to hers. Dale was a good farmer. He followed the rules. He paid for the service plans. He trusted the dealer. He cornered Sarah at the co-op one morning. "I heard what you and your brother did," he said. He wasn't congratulating her. He was warning her. "That's a dangerous game you're playing, Sarah. You're messing with emissions equipment. That's a federal offense, you know. And what happens when that little trick of yours fails? What happens when you're halfway through a field and the whole thing shuts down for good? You'll have voided your warranty. They won't touch it. You'll have a $300,000 boat anchor." He shook his head, a look of genuine concern on his face. "Your dad would have never done something so reckless. He was trying to be a good neighbor. He was trying to protect her, just like Frank." Then there was the second camp, the quiet believers, the older farmers, the ones who remembered a time before software lockouts. Men who had rebuilt engines in the field with baling wire and hope. They didn't say much to Sarah directly. They just started showing up. George Peterson, who farmed for 50 years, dropped off a box of old service manuals for Caterpillar engines. "No reason," he said. "Just thought you might find them interesting." Mikey,
the kid from the high school auto shop, stopped by on his bike. "My grandpa said you might need a hand turning wrenches sometime. I work cheap." A strange thing started happening. Broken things started appearing at the end of Sarah's lane. A lawnmower with a seized engine. A chainsaw that wouldn't start. A '92 Chevy with a transmission that slipped. No note, no explanation, just offerings. Tests. Sarah and Ben fixed them. They left them at the end of the lane, running perfectly. The next day, they'd be gone. In their place, a pie, a case of beer, a basket of fresh eggs. It was a silent conversation, a restoration of an old covenant, the covenant of mutual aid, of neighborliness, a covenant that had been broken by service contracts and proprietary software. Sarah realized what was happening. This wasn't just about her tractor. It was about a community that felt powerless. A community of proud, capable people who had been convinced they were no longer smart enough, no longer skilled enough, to own the things they had paid for. The 2 weeks passed. The little plastic bag from China arrived in the mail. The sensor was identical to the one in the diagram. $14.99. Ben installed it in 20 minutes. It worked perfectly. He took the old sensor, the one with his resistor soldered to it, and mounted it on a piece of barnwood. He hung it on the wall of his shop. A trophy. A reminder. That fall, Sarah had the best harvest of her life. The tractor ran without a single hiccup. The yields were high, the prices were good. She paid off the repair bill she never had. And then she paid off the rest of the tractor loan. In one lump sum. Cash. She walked into the bank and handed the teller a check. The teller looked at the amount. She looked at Sarah. She called the manager. The manager looked at the check. He looked at Sarah. He said, "This is a lot of money, Miss Connolly. Are you sure?" "I'm sure," Sarah said. She never wanted to owe anyone anything ever again. Self-sufficiency. It was no longer a philosophy. It was a survival strategy. This is where the story could end. A simple tale of one woman's triumph over a greedy corporation. But that's not what happened. Because this was never about the $7,500. It was about the idea that you are not allowed to fix your own property. And Sarah decided that idea had to die. Let me tell you about the next 10 years. Let me tell you what Sarah built. It started small. The winter of 2018. She and Ben cleared out the old machine shed, the one her father hadn't used in years. They poured a new concrete floor. They ran new wiring. They bought a used hydraulic lift with the profits from the harvest. Cash. They opened a repair shop, but not just any repair shop. They specialized. Their sign was simple. Connolly Repair. We fix old iron, and we keep new iron honest. The first customers were the quiet believers, the old farmers. They brought in their John Deere 402s, their International Harvester 106.6s, their Alice Chalmers D19s, machines that had been put out to pasture, replaced by newer, more complicated models. Sarah and Ben brought them back to life. They didn't just fix them, they improved them. They added modern comforts to old frames, better seats, brighter LED lights, simple hydraulic upgrades. They made old iron better than new, because you could still fix it with a wrench. By 2019, they had a 3-month waiting list. Farmers were trucking in old tractors from 3 states away. They were buying up forgotten machines at auction for pennies on the dollar and bringing them to the Connollys. It was a movement, a quiet rebellion fought with grease and steel. While this was happening, something else was going on. Sarah started a blog, a simple website. She told her story, the fault code, the quote, the resistor, the $14 sensor. She posted everything. The wiring diagrams Ben had found, the links to the forums, the part numbers. She gave it all away for free. She called the blog, "The Dirt is Enough." Within a year, it had 1 million readers, farmers from Argentina to Ukraine, all facing the same digital walls, all being told it was too complicated. Sarah became a different kind of farmer. She was still farming her 160 acres, but she was also cultivating something else, an army of the capable. In 2020, she started holding workshops, right in the barn. Right to Repair 101. She taught farmers how to read diagnostic codes, how to use basic electronic tools, how to find information, how to bypass the locks, how to tell the computer a different story. The first workshop had 12 farmers. They sat on hay bales. They drank coffee from a thermos. By 2022, she had to rent the high school auditorium, 200 farmers per session. She started a nonprofit, the Paternal Protection Fund, a legal defense fund for farmers being sued by equipment manufacturers for copyright infringement, for modifying their own tractors. The name was a quiet jab at Frank Miller, at all the Frank Millers of the world, the ones who tried to protect you into a corner. All the while, the witness was watching. Frank Miller. He couldn't avoid it. He'd see Sarah's name in the farm journals. He'd hear her on the radio during his commute. The Rebel of the Valley, one article called her. He'd see the tractors coming into his dealership for trade-in, and he'd see the modifications, the bypasses, the clever workarounds, each one a small testament to his mistake. He saw the market share for his company's service department start to decline in his region. Not by much, just a few percentage points. But it was a number that had never, ever gone down before. He saw the rise in sales of older model tractors at auctions. He saw the value of a 40-year-old machine inexplicably start the climb. He saw the business boom at Ben's old garage in town. Ben had hired 3 more mechanics. They were specializing in aftermarket tuning solutions, a polite term for breaking the dealer's lock. Frank never said anything, not to his wife, not to his bosses. He just watched. He watched one woman, armed with a $14 sensor and a righteous anger, slowly and methodically dismantle a system he had given his life to, a system he believed in. He felt something he couldn't quite name, not anger, not jealousy, something that felt a lot like respect, and a little bit like fear. By 2025, Sarah was no longer just a farmer. She was a force. She was invited to speak in Washington, in front of a congressional subcommittee on fair trade practices. She wore her work boots. She didn't have a speech. She just had her story. She told them about her father. She told them about Frank. She held up the $14 sensor for the cameras, and she held up the $7,500 repair quote. The contrast math was undeniable. The quiet devastation was complete. She ended with a simple statement. My father taught me that self-sufficiency is the only true freedom. But you cannot be self-sufficient if you do not own the things you have paid for. If a company has a secret kill switch on your property is not truly yours. You are just renting it. This is not a business issue. This is a freedom issue. That year, the first right to repair agricultural bill was passed. It started in her state, then another, and another. The revolution was being televised. And that brings us back to 2029. Back to the conference room. Frank Miller staring at the 2 numbers on the screen. $7,482.56. $14.99. The lawyer clears his throat. A gentle, almost apologetic sound. Mr. Miller, he says, looking back, do you believe your company's policy was in the best interest of the customer? Of Sarah Connolly? Frank looks at the young lawyer's face. He sees the eagerness, the hunger for a gotcha moment. He could stonewall. He could spout the company line. He could talk about safety and warranties and intellectual property. He could do the job they were paying him to do. But Frank is 67 years old. He's tired. And for the first time in a long time, he wants to tell the truth. Not the corporate truth, the human truth. He leans back in his chair. He looks past the lawyer, at the wall. He says, "I knew her father, Tom Connolly. He was a good man. He could fix anything. He taught his kids the same way." Then he looks directly at the lawyer. His voice is quiet, but it fills the room. "We sold them a tractor they couldn't fix. We sold them a problem disguised as a solution. I thought I was helping her. I told her she was in over her head." He shakes his head slowly, a deep, profound sadness in his eyes. "Turns out, I was the one who was in over my head. I just didn't know it yet. We weren't selling tractors, we were selling dependence. Sarah Connolly, she just wanted to be free, and we tried to stop her." The lawyer is silent. He wasn't expecting this. He wasn't expecting a confession. He was expecting a fight. Frank Miller, the company man, the true believer, just gave them everything they needed. He stood up. "My testimony is done," he says. He walks out of the room. He doesn't look back. He gets in his car, and for the first time, he doesn't drive home. He drives out into the country. He drives until the pavement turns to gravel. He drives until he sees a simple wooden sign, "Connolly Repair." He pulls into the driveway. The place is bustling. Young men and women in greasy coveralls, laughing. The sound of air wrenches and classic rock music. And in the middle of it all, Sarah. She's older now, lines of laughter and sun around her eyes. She's leaning over an engine, pointing something out to a young girl no older than 16. She looks up when his car pulls in. She doesn't look surprised. She just looks patient, like she knew this day would come. Frank gets out of the car. He walks towards her. He stops about 10 feet away. They just look at each other for a long moment. The sounds of the shop fade away. "Sarah," he starts. He doesn't know what to say. "I'm sorry? You were right?" Nothing seems big enough. She wipes her hands on a rag. She walks towards him. She doesn't look angry. She just looks tired. But a good kind of tired. The kind of tired that comes from a long day of work you believe in. "You know, Frank," she says. Her voice is calm. "The money was never the point. I could have gotten the money. It wasn't about the $7,500. It was about you telling me you were protecting me, while you were putting me out of business." She looks him right in the eye, proving someone wrong who thinks they're being kind. That's the loneliest fight there is. Frank just nods. There's nothing else to say. She was right. Then she smiles. A small, genuine smile. "But you're here now," she says. "What's broken?" The question hangs in the air. What's broken? Everything. Me. He gestures vaguely at the world. He doesn't say it. He doesn't have to. She understands. She just nods. "Yeah," she says. "We can fix that. Come on, I'll give you the tour." Today, if you visit the Connolly farm, you'll see the 160 acres, still corn and soybeans, but you'll also see more. The repair shop has expanded. It's now the Connolly Technical Institute, a non-profit school that teaches repair and fabrication to a new generation of farmers and mechanics. Tuition is free. The only requirement is that you have to spend one summer working on a farm. To understand the dirt. Ben's old shop in town is now the headquarters for The Dirt Is Enough, a global advocacy group for right to repair. They have a team of lawyers and engineers who work full-time, for free, to help people unlock and repair their own equipment. And on the wall of the main classroom at the Institute, there's a simple wooden plaque. On it, a small jerry-rigged sensor, the resistor still wrapped in faded electrical tape. Underneath it, a small brass plate. It doesn't say, "the part that saved the farm." It doesn't say, "the $14 miracle." It just says, "Certainty is a cage. Curiosity is the key." Sarah Connolly never wanted to be a revolutionary. She just wanted to farm. She just wanted to fix her own tractor. But the world told her no. The world told her she couldn't. The world told her she needed to be protected from herself.
And in doing so, the world created its own opposition. It turned a farmer into a fighter. It turned a repair into a rebellion. It turned a quiet woman into a voice for millions. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is being told no. Someone is being told they aren't smart enough, strong enough, or capable enough to solve their own problems. Someone is being offered protection that is really just a prison. This story is for them. It's a reminder that the most powerful person in the room is often the one who has been underestimated. It's a reminder that true freedom isn't given, it's taken back, one broken part at a time. If you believe that, subscribe to this channel. We have more stories to tell. And if this story reminded you of someone who is fighting their own quiet battle against a world that has already made up its mind about them, share it with them. Let them know they are not alone. Because sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply believe someone when the whole world is telling them they're wrong.